On today's video, I'm going to show you my process on creating my environment for my new short story horror comic. I can't tell you how much I procrastinated on doing this environment. I am not a fan of environments, and it's hard to say because in comics you need to, in manga you need to, and I know that there's lots of ways that you can cheat this. You can use pictures, you can use, I'm not going to say that using pictures or 3D is a cheat. No, that's not what I'm going to say. But I always wanted to be able to draw environments myself, and I've been doing Art Wad's landscape course, and to be honest, it's actually pretty good and I've learned a lot, but I still have so many doubts about my process in doing landscapes. So I always start in my sketchbook. Alright, so I picked the story dictates that I need a woody forest area for this comic because the character is running through the forest and he's going to trip over a tree root that is above ground. So I needed woods and I needed a tree, a big ass tree, and I did not know where to start. I had no idea where to start, and so I really procrastinated. That's why I started with the main character, that's why I started with the monster character, but ultimately I put this last because I had the most anxiety around creating it because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this thing. And to be honest, this is a thing that happens in comics a lot. Like, as you make comics, as you make manga, you're going to come up with these great ideas, these great stories. And the thing about it is, a lot of your ideas, you're going to have to draw things that you've never drawn before. You're going to have to do things that you've never done before. And it's going to scare you a little bit. Well, at least it scares me a little bit because I'm like, why the heck did I say that I was going to make a comic in the woods when I don't even know how to draw a tree? I don't know how to draw a forest. Like, what was I thinking? I remember I made a comic where it had cars in it. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to draw a car. What am I thinking? But that is the true thing about making comics, is that you're going to make things that you have no idea how to make. So I started off with like doodling, and then eventually I got the idea. I was like, wait a minute, this comic that I read, Wind, that is like they move through this forest, the wild woods, and I could use those ideas. So I did like a little thumbnail of the Wind comic, and that was okay, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. I did several of those Wind studies, and I think it came out okay enough, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But I was noticing foreground, middle ground, background, how the artist separated out those details. So then, because in art, it's kind of interesting how all of this was coming together. I was doing the Art Wad landscape at the same time, and we were learning how to do tree roots and how to do a tree ground plane. So then I started doodling trees and tree trunks and how I wanted the roots to snake out and things like that. And those were pretty cool. So I started getting ideas that way. And then by chance, this was just completely random. I picked up a book on Hoopla called Viking Moon. And I mean, I like Vikings. I had just finished reading Vinland Saga not that long ago. So I was like, let's see what this is all about. And in this comic, there were actually woods. And I loved how the artist Marcelo Frusin drew the woods and the forest. And so I started doing studies based upon that. And I really enjoyed those studies, and I really started studying, like, how is he creating this illusion of a full forest with so little? So I did those studies. I took out the characters because I only cared about the background. And I did those studies for a couple days. And this is what I call productive procrastination because I was supposed to be designing my own forest and woods, but instead I was just drawing the forest and woods in the Viking Moon comic, which, I mean, I'm not mad at because it helped me a lot. But I was noticing that in the foreground there was very good, like, hard amount of detail, or he would use shadow in a way to show the detail. And then even on the ground plane, he would make like indications for the grass and things like that. But he was very clear with the shadows. So I did even more studies and showing how, like, the light, let's see here, foreground, middle ground, background, and how the darkness of the foreground moved to the light background, and that the detail was insinuated, and how he uses lots of diagonals, and then he uses textures. And I just made all these little notes about this comic and how beautiful it looked. And from that point, I started to get a little bit of confidence that maybe I could do this if I kind of leaned in the direction of this artist. So I came back and I tried my first rough concepts, and I think, surprisingly, I was really pleased with how they came out. And because I did the two, I was like, you know what, I don't know if I can do this again, so let me just mess with the tree trunks roots again. How do I want these roots to look? And then, of course, I got Viking Moon 2 on Hoopla, and once again, I was noticing those beautiful backgrounds, so I was like, okay, let me do some more studies, because why not? And I really like how these came out too. The other book I decided to mess around with is How to Think When You Draw, and I like that series of books, and it was kind of giving me some ideas of what I could do, but still, it wasn't clicking for me. Then I came up with one tree design that I really liked with the roots, and I decided to go in that direction, to stick in that direction. And so, because I knew I needed to make a giant tree, I went with How to Think When You Draw, and they have a whole section on giant trees and how to create those, and I came up with what I thought was an aesthetic design. And I wasn't sure if I wanted, like, the tree to be on a ledge, so I was doodling, and that's what your sketchbook is for, doodling around. So then finally I was like, alright, it's time to actually make this thing, stop procrastinating, just make the scene, just do it. And so I started thumbnailing the ideas, messing with diagonals, messing with the shadows, and I came up with two ideas that I really liked. And that is when I took it to my iPad and started working in Clip Studio Paint. I drew like a little dude alongside the tree because I wanted to understand how the tree looked, and I wanted to understand the scene that he was going to be coming into. And I know that there's like more that I could do with it, but I'm really happy with how these scenes came out. I also made a little bit of leaf shapes because I wanted to mess around with the shape of the leaves, because he's supposed to fall into these leaf patterns on the ground. But overall, like, between Viking Moon, How to Think When You Draw, Art Wad, and Wind, all of these things helped me gain that confidence I needed to create this scene. And so now I've got my main character, I've got the monster, I've got the environment. So really the next step is to begin the thumbnail process. So what can you take away from all this? Don't let fear of not knowing how to draw something stop you from doing the thing. I didn't know how to draw trees, I didn't know how to draw landscapes, and I'm not gonna say that I do know how, but what I do know how to do is combine all these things and study very specific things and put them together to a cohesive idea. So hopefully you guys took something away from all that, and you can fight through the fear of creating your scene at the same time. If you have any questions about my process, let me know in the comment section below. We're off to the races with this thing. Pretty soon we got thumbnails, we got pencils, we got inks, colors. You're gonna see the whole process. So if you're interested in anything to do with making a comic, specifically this one is a short story, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. See you guys in the next video.